Real Estate Talk Show. I have a great guest here today. I want you to meet Anthony Askowitz. He's the broker of RE/MAX Advance Real Estate. And we are here to talk a lot of things to get people to really understand what's going on with real estate today and in general, what real estate really is about. Because often people are thinking about doing something in real estate, but in reality, what is it, about every 10 years that somebody makes a move?
Basically so. Yeah.
We're making moves for people every single day. Right. And so we obviously have current knowledge, and we'd like to share some of that with our audience today. So I also would like to ask anybody that's out there watching to please chime in. You can go right down to the Facebook comments, ask us questions, and Tommy will feed those over to us. And hopefully we can not only do our topics, but anything that you have on your mind, the audience, please do chime in. So we have a very hot real estate market, Anthony. If you could explain to people what your feeling is about the market, how we got here, and then we'll talk about some inventory and really share
or lack thereof.
Exactly. We'd like to share inventory. We just don't have it.
Right.
So tell us about the hot market and how you think we got here.
Well, I think it's interesting, and hi audience. It's interesting that our market is really being dictated a lot by what's happened because of COVID. That people are moving and have discovered that they can work from anywhere. So why not come down to sunny Florida? And especially Miami. We have incredible weather, which today is no different. And you can get a nice piece of property. You can get a nice house, great schools. And if you're living up north in the Northeast, it's cold. I mean, right now they're freezing. And you can get out of all of that and basically live in a home for a lot less than you would live up in, let's say, New York. And the nice thing about Florida is that we have no state income tax.
That's true. Yeah. That was a big draw. As you are probably aware, I came in from out of state, and it certainly was a nice little surprise not to have that. Now, I actually am surprised because as COVID was first gearing up and we all had the mandates to stay inside, I was worried that the real estate market would be in a very different position than it is today. That being that since people were potentially losing their job or certainly losing hours, and the fact that people weren't going to be moving around, I thought, oh my gosh, the real estate market's essentially going to go into hibernation.
Right.
And it didn't. And I think the key factor there was interest rates, right?
I think that's one of the major factors, or interest rates, because with interest rates at around 3%, it's basically free to buy a home right now. It's not really free, but it's basically free money.
Right.
So the advantage, if you buy a $500,000 house today at basically 3%, or if tomorrow it goes up to 6%, really your purchasing power is half of what it is today. So the advantage is right now, if you can purchase a home, and that's really what we're talking about, homes, because what's happened with the condo market now is that people have discovered that you can't use the pool, you can't use the gym because of COVID and all. So people really want their freedom, and they're looking at our single family market more and more.
I don't know how you're seeing the market and how often you're out, but I see the single family homes selling and having tons of activity, whereas the condo market, even comparing to the way it was prior to COVID, it's about half of that.
Right.
Where the interest in living in and around and on top of people is near zero at this point. I have a fabulous listing. I'll do a little plug at the Reserve of Pinecrest, which is a 68 unit garden type condominium complex right in Pinecrest with some very nice features to it. And there are nearly no people that are interested in coming for showings. And so that's interesting. But let's go back to more of the market being very different than we expected.
Right.
And we talked briefly about inventory. So share with me your little humor about inventory and the fact that maybe there isn't any. So talk
well, we know that there's homes out there.
Right.
The question is, are they going to be putting them on the market? So we're right now at the beginning of January, and typically that people start putting their homes on the market now because the whole Christmas holiday season is over and they're ready to move on. So people are coming from up north looking for property. I mean, it's been a huge influx of Northerners coming down to Florida. They're just looking for property. So when a really nice property that comes on the market, a single family, basically, there are sometimes multiple offers on these properties, which is really nice. With a competent agent, Hal, like you, you are able to get more for the property than they would have on their own, let's say.
So one of the things that I'm coming to realization with is for the past, let's say 7 months, approximately, there has been a lot of buyers, which has turned this into a very strong seller's market. Seller's market meaning that you have a higher likelihood of selling at a higher price and commanding what your contract ultimately looks like. But I also kind of am looking at January timeframe, having been in this kind of bubble and this activity level for now 6 to 7 months, that all of those early birds that said, hey, you know what, I am going to take advantage of these interest rates. There was a huge rush to the door to make that happen. That can't last forever. Or do you see something different? Do you see things waning?
It can't last forever, but I'm going to tell you, it's still here right now.
I agree. Yes.
And you work in the present, and tomorrow, we don't know what interest rates will be tomorrow. So that's also ultimately the reason to buy today, is because you know what you have. And if you think you're paying a few dollars more, once again, it's free money. Go ahead and do it. In fact, I tell most folks, if they're going to buy a home, buy the most expensive home they can right now. You'll grow into it. If you have 1 kid, 2 kids, basically now is the time, because you may end up having 3, 4 kids, let's say. So if you buy a bigger house than you would normally buy or consider, now is the time to do it.
Okay. I'm going to ask you another question, and it kind of, you led right into it. But first, we do have a question. George asks, what's the asking price for the unit at the Reserve of Pinecrest? So first of all, George, the unit is a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath. It has 4 balconies, if you can believe it. So everything except for one of the bedrooms actually has a nice sized balcony, and the front area where you enter the home has this massive expanse of outdoor area that is privately yours. It is listed for $650,000, which compared to the other 3 units that are available there is actually quite aggressive. The family is looking to move closer to other family. And so if you're interested, please get in touch with me on my website or through the information that's on screen right now. But
I'd like to add to your reserve. One thing about real estate, it's location, location, location.
Right.
And what you didn't mention is how you can actually walk to a park. You can walk to get some pizza around the corner.
Literally next door.
Next door
is Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza.
Right. So
another plug for Anthony's, which I love.
It's all good.
So my question to you is, with inventory, what would you be telling? Let's start with buyers. What would you tell buyers right now who are in this hyper competitive environment?
So I would talk to the buyer and say to them, 1, you have to be prepared for multiple offer situations. So you're going to look at the house itself. If you love it, if you want it, you have to go after it. And realistically, you have to consider, if there's 1 offer, 2 offers, 5 offers, how much are these other folks going to offer?
Right.
So let's say a $400,000 home. If it's listed for $400,000, but let's say it's only worth $380,000. Now we have to factor in the appraisal issue.
Correct.
So there's so many factors. That's why a competent agent like Hal Feldman is
Anthony.
Plug for you is a good idea. Someone who understands and can go around and figure out exactly the best way to get you that home. And ultimately, that's the goal.
So for buyers, I will add to that, everything that you said is accurate. And when you make an offer, you need to be incredibly aggressive, but only to the point that you are able to follow through on those aggressive offer terms.
Correct.
Because I am running into issues with buyers that just are so desperate. They want that particular house that they are potentially stretching beyond what they are capable of doing. And so you really have to rein them in and help them understand realistically how they need to approach a home purchase.
Well, going back to my same statement, that money, if they can afford it, go for it. Now, the difference is sometimes when it comes difference, let's say it appraises for $380,000 and they're purchasing it for $400,000.
Right.
and the seller doesn't want to reduce it. And so they have to be prepared to pay, let's say, that $20,000. And let's just face it, not everyone has $20,000 just sitting around.
Right.
But if we're creative and we can think outside the box, we have our parents sometimes or our relatives that we can get a gift or a loan from.
Right.
So there's ways of figuring
out
how it can be done. So, but looking at it as a home, not necessarily as an investment, is really a key here, because this is where they're going to live for 10 years plus,
right,
give or take.
Now that's advice for buyers. What
yes.
would you tell a seller in this, hot seller's market?
Mm-hmm.
What do you tell sellers? Because some of them are flying so high, they don't, again, understand what the reality is and how to get things accomplished.
Well, in today's market right now, finding a competent agent who
right,
knows the area, who knows what's going on, and who can really explain all the different facets of a sale from start to finish, who does incredible marketing so that you can get that total exposure, so the house is seen by millions of people, let's say.
And we'll pause there because
Sure.
I want to emphasize something. You're talking about proper and incredible marketing.
Yeah.
And the marketing has changed through COVID-19 times
Yes.
as well. Whereas in prior years, it's been focused primarily on two things, that being photography
Right.
and the write-up of it.
Right.
All those things remain.
Mm-hmm.
But whereas maybe 2 years ago on a property, I would have put 15 photos in,
Mm-hmm.
I might now expand that to even double or even triple the number of photos, because many people are shopping strictly online and
Yep.
only are going out to homes when they are pretty darn sure that's the home they want to put an offering
Right.
on. In addition, video has really come to the forefront, and it's one of my specialties. And I love the fact that I now have a real platform to show off my skills in video.
Right.
And I know that you work with approximately 150 agents at our brokerage now. Talk to me about what other agents are doing and how video has come into a real forefront, and why it's necessary for any seller to work with an agent that's going to do that.
I think one, the video or even 3D imaging, so you can actually virtually walk
Yes.
through homes, is really come strong right now because of COVID. But what it also does, Hal, is it eliminates some looky-loos, just people who just want to look at a house. Because of COVID, we've really made a lot of changes. Like everyone wears a mask. I mean, we have a separation between the two of us.
We're like caged animals.
We're caged right now. But for showing at houses, we require, the use of masks, wearing gloves, even booties for some. So it just, and we limit also the amount of people who see the house. So by having a Matterport or gorgeous videos that you produce, that the consumer can see it and really can say yes or no based on what they see. And it really doesn't necessarily, it gets rid of people who are just not going to purchase the property, let's say.
And you mentioned a term that many people may not be familiar with. That's Matterport. So if I can explain that briefly, it is high-end 360-degree photography. And when you're finished Matterporting a home, by the way, Anthony Askowitz is one of the few brokers that owns a Matterport system. When you go ahead and finish that up and put it online, you as a consumer can be sitting in your robe at home and take a tour by literally clicking through these photographs. And it almost looks like you're moving through in video format. And at any point in the Matterport tour, you can manually decide, I want to spin around the kitchen and see what type of appliance this is. You can't open any drawers. You can't do the finer things, but you certainly can get a really rich experience through this Matterport or virtual tour.
Right.
Let's talk about something a lot simpler, and I want you to kind of dispel the myth.
Keep it simple, Hal, for me.
Often clients or future clients of mine will talk to me about how they've really educated themselves in the market because they've gone to a particular website and they know what this area sells for per square foot.
Wow.
And I sit there with a little crinkled smile and I listen to, my house is going to be worth $200 a square foot, or whatever the number is. And you got to go shake your head a little bit. And then you say, well, wait a minute. All of those websites that you just were visiting, have they ever been inside your house? And so do you think that the fact that you have a 3-year-old roof or a brand new kitchen doesn't factor into that square footage price. So share with us your frustration or your experience with people that talk about per square foot pricing of their home. And I'm looking at many of you out there in the audience. So.
Right. So price per square foot is a great guide or a beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, if there's improvements in the property, it doesn't
or detriments,
or if it hasn't been updated in 50 years.
Right.
There's so many factors that go in, and then also price per square foot. If it's $200 a square foot, and let's say you have a 2,000 square foot home and you decided to add on 1,000 square feet. I mean,
right.
And the cost to add on 1,000 square feet is $150 a square foot. So does that mean you've just made money by doing this addition? And if you're using price per square foot, the answer would be, yeah, it would seem that you would. Then we should all just keep on adding to our houses.
Correct.
But what happens is sometimes it becomes functionally obsolete. You have square footage that has no bearing and no value to folks. So you can keep on adding, but it doesn't necessarily add value. You want to be the smallest home among the larger, not the largest among the smaller.
And we'll just talk about square footage one other way. And many people don't understand this. Some people in the area have 2-story homes.
Yes.
And let's say the first story is 1,000 square feet and the second story is 1,000 square feet. Tell us why that doesn't equal 2,000 square feet.
Well, it kind of does, but it doesn't. So first of all, 2-story homes in Miami are not as valuable. Northerners seem to like that 2-story homes,
mm-hmm.
but folks from Miami, we really tend to like 1-story. I think we're kind of used to it. We didn't grow up with a 2-story. You coming from the north, yes, it's
tend to be stronger homes, single-story homes, because of the
hurricanes.
Wind potential.
Yes.
And so the less surface area you have that the wind can push against, the better off. So a single story with, winds coming from one direction, stronger as well. But tell us again, specifically about the 1,000 foot on the first and the 1,000 foot on the second. That doesn't even equal 2,000, does it, in real estate math?
In real estate math, it does not. So there's different ways of calculating square footage. So there's the living square footage, which is like your air conditioned. You have what's called adjusted square footage, which is a formula of using your living square footage, which is your AC'd area, plus half of the garage, 1/3 of overhang. And then there's a factor for the upstairs. And then there's the total under roof. That is ultimately the largest. Miami-Dade County taxes us based on our adjusted square foot. And I want to say one more thing about square foot.
Sure. And then we're past it, because you know what? It's such a small factor in when you're really dealing with real estate. But what's the last thing you want to talk about? One thing is,
we're getting a little older. I mean, I know your age, so having a 1-story and not having to climb upstairs is just so much easier if you don't have to climb the stairs.
Agreed. And I do find in my practice that the predominant number of people would like a single-story home over a 2-story home. So let's talk about how contracts are playing such a pivotal role in the success of an offer into a contract. Now, many times people say, oh, I'm under contract, and they don't even think about the road from that signing of a contract through the actual closing.
Right.
And what is exacerbated by COVID-19 right now, as opposed to prior to the pandemic. And let's just discuss and open up a conversation about what people should really be paying attention to when they do get under contract, either as a buyer or seller.
Well, there are time frames for things. For example,
there is.
We're
not on Cuban time during a contract.
We are all about time frames and dates and times that things are due. So, for example, you have your initial deposit, depending on the contract itself, could be within a day, 3 days, depending on how it's written. Additional deposit, anywhere from 5 to 15 days. So you have time frames. Then you have to get a mortgage approval. You have a closing date. All of these things, with a competent agent, you'll know exactly what to expect.
You keep mentioning competent agent.
Yes.
The people right now who are thinking about selling their home, oh, it's such a hot market, I can do this myself. Let's explore that a little bit. Why do people falsely believe, because that's where I think, falsely believe they can do it all on their own?
Well, it's not that they believe that they can. Ultimately, what they're trying to do is save a commission.
Correct.
And what they ultimately do is they give that commission to the buyer. They say, well, I'm saving that money. I'll just give it to you in the negotiation aspect. Just give it to you, the buyer.
So they're creating work which they don't necessarily
Correct.
have expertise in, like a real estate agent would.
Right. They're not doctors. They're not lawyers. They wouldn't practice law. They would hire an attorney. Same thing. They would hire if they're sick, you hire a doctor.
And then the buyer comes along and says, listen, we both know that if there was an agent involved, this house would be worth $500,000, but there's no agent involved.
Right.
So why don't I just buy it for $450,000?
Sure. And the seller will say, you know what, a quick sale, what have you, here it is. And it hurt the area. It's affected by it for appraisals in the future. They end up being their own advocates, which is not the worst thing, but having a third party as someone who, a real estate agent who is not emotionally attached, who's not going to fall in love with the buyer, though I'm sure they're all very nice, but can write a contract, can make sure that it's followed through from start to finish. So just putting a house on the market, our job is not complete. Once we go under contract, our job is not complete. Until that money is in the seller's account, then our job is complete, and then we go on from there. So, but contracts and the way that they're written, even with an agent, you list a house, Hal, and let's say you receive 3 offers. There is a difference in those 3 offers. Sometimes they're not filled in. There's mistakes. There's errors. These things can come back.
So you're saying that 3 offers, all with the same price on them, can be very different?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
In many ways. In fact, if you don't know what the contract says, if you don't read the fine print and the lines and everything, there are other things that could be put in there. Let's say seller paying closing costs. If you're not careful, or who's paying for title insurance, these things can slip right through.
Thousands of dollars difference.
Thousands of dollars. Yes.
Yeah. So we're running out of time, and I do want to talk to the audience just briefly here. This is my first official show. I've done shows in the past about real estate, but the idea is consistency here. So Thursdays at 2:00 on a regular basis for the next few months. We're going to see where this takes us. It really is a show that I want you to be a part of. So if there's something you didn't hear today, even though I had an incredible guest, and we are going to ask one more question of him, I want to know how to kind of steer this conversation so that it works best for you. I do see that George put in a little comment about don't forget to deduct for illegal additions to the home. As you're aware, a lot of this happened right after Hurricane Andrew, where people were scrambling to reassemble their home in some way, shape, or form. The government was unable to keep up with permits and coming out and inspecting things. So a lot of things were done without proper permitting and records. And so, yes, he is correct. If a garage was converted in particular, that seems to be a very commonplace thing. You would not necessarily, upon appraisal, get the credit for that finished space because it's not legally finished. Okay. So last thing I want to talk about and discuss is you're talking about hiring a competent agent. Now, that could be you trying to buy something or sell something. And not all agents are made the same.
No.
I am very specifically geared to trying to be a listing agent. That is my job, my competency. I know areas that at a very deep level that other agents don't know. And yes, I will help buyers when they need that help. But for example, if my area in particular is Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay, Pinecrest, basically the communities south of downtown, if somebody came to me and said, I want to buy in Miami Shores, the first thing I would do is say, let's find you another agent. Because even though I would like to further my career, I'd much rather give somebody 100% of my knowledge rather than faking it. And that would be for also a listing. If somebody in Miami Shores says, I've heard great things about you, come list my house, I would say, I want to have you continue to hear great things about me. I'm not going to list that house. Let me find you somebody that is an expert in that area. So that's key. But I really want to share with people the difference between a listing agent and a buyer's agent. And since you are the broker of RE/MAX Advance, I figure no better question than to ask you what type of agents you have and why there are differences between buyer and seller agents.
I think it comes down to comfort level. I think a RE/MAX Advance Realty agent is competent and can do anything, listings and sales, working with buyers. I think that some people, like I said, comes down to comfort. So on a listing side, they feel that representing their seller in the sale of their property is one of the things that they do very well in the negotiation aspect. That's really what it comes down to, is negotiations. And RE/MAX Advance Realty agents like yourself you have years of experience. So it's not like you're brand new in the business. And for those, people seem to think that sometimes they want to use their best friend who just got their license. You guys are dealing with $500,000, $600,000 homes. And to put that in the hands of someone who just got their license, it's very nice of you. The charity.
I have a few sayings that I use over and over and over again because they're learned lessons in over a decade of doing this. And one is, if you're going to do anybody a favor during a real estate transaction, do it for yourself.
Right.
Not for a family member, not for a friend. It's going to come back and bite you.
Right.
And even if a friend does an incredible job for you, just sharing financial information and some personal details, often that ends up ruining the friendship or certainly tarnishing that. So
I would say, though, obviously a friend who's using you at this point in your career has no problem. It's going to be a flawless sale from start to finish. Once again, I think it comes down to those who just got their license. They need practice, but someone who just gets their license, I would recommend that they go onto a team and be part of a whole group so that they have some sort of mentor program that would help them with all the facets of a sale from start to finish, because there's so many. When I first got into business, Hal, yes, you were born, but I will say this, that
we're very close in age. So anything he says about age, I have to take to heart here too.
Right. I am actually a little older. So what happens is, in 1989, when I got my license, contract was 1 page. Today, it's 20. So many things have changed in the 31, 32 years that I've had my license.
That's competency in your agent too, because things have gotten more legally complex. I don't feel that somebody that says, I'm going to do it on my own, even if they make the effort and actually get lucky enough to get under contract, they're doing themselves a disservice, because they, like you and I said at the beginning of the program, most people do this maybe every 10 years in their life. And we're doing it every day. And there are a lot of lessons to be learned by taking it the hard way.
Right.
And we've learned those. We don't want a client or a potential client of ours to make those mistakes and really hurt themselves, because at $500,000 transactions, it can hurt quite a bit.
Yeah.
That is all the time that we really have today. I want to thank you for coming in. You are my first guinea pig, and an excellent one.
Well, I hope you'll invite me back one time.
I will. And you as an audience, I hope you enjoyed this. Again, this show will be shaped and formed by your questions and the way that you want to guide this. Ultimately, even though we're the ones in front of the video, I want you to be a direct participant in what we're doing in future episodes. And even after the show has aired, I'm going to look at all the comments on its rebroadcast. Please tell me how we can make this better for you. Real estate is exciting, and you can do it the smart, effective way. And we're here to help you. Anthony is one of the people. I will be bringing a new guest on each and every week. And I'm quite sure by popular demand, we're going to be seeing you as well.
Thank you.
Until then, let's go say goodbye to the audience. Have a great day.
Yeah.